Chair. Thanks to CITA for inviting me here to talk, and good morning everybody. I've put together this BIM Buzz collage of words and phrases that have appeared on our old drawing boards, I suppose, over the last 10 years. I was one of the first people in the OPW that was there when CAD was brought in, and we faced the same challenges back then that we're facing now in our industry. Except instead of CAD coming on the drawing board now, this is what we have to have a look at. There's no need to be scared by these words. They will become part of your normal working routine over the next couple of years as BIM does take a hold and will take a hold, I think, in our design industry. The presentation today that I'm going to talk about is our experience where the Department of Education is regarding BIM. As you're all well aware, there's no fixed mandate from the government as such yet. There is works going on in the background, I believe, but nothing concrete yet. But having said that, the department itself, we have our own research areas that we will focus on. And BIM is one of the areas where we're trying to incorporate into what we do on an everyday basis. The Department of Education, I suppose its role, the Planning and Building Unit is responsible for delivering school infrastructure in Ireland. We need to identify accommodation needs for schools. We set out the technical specifications, performance standards, ensuring that the standards are maintained, prioritise the allocation of the funding, resources, and oversee the delivery of the capital programme. And the capital programme is probably the area where BIM is probably going to have the biggest impact. As a client, I work in a section within the department called the Professional and Technical section. Essentially, I suppose it's an architectural practice. We have engineers, QSs, that work and serve with us in there, and our main role is to develop guidelines, standards, and deliver projects that may be innovative or maybe new ways of thinking. And also then we support the industry itself regarding design teams and design team procedures, and we try and give advice where we can. Development of policy is another area that we've been into, and again I'm mentioning this because it does have an impact with BIM and how BIM is integrated into department projects. Personally myself, I would love to see BIM being integrated into educational projects, but unfortunately there are programs and measures in place at the minute that will have to be adapted, or BIM maybe have to adapt it for both to work in conjunction together. Neither can be ignored. The department, our design area and production of technical guidance documents for school design is an area where I see BIM is very strong, and that bundle of documents fits very well with the BIM process. So I would be hoping that in time we will be able to implement these documents using BIM. As a client, the department, we have a large budget. It has been fleeced a few times, but it seems to recover up and down over the years. Minister Quinn announced a €2 billion 5-year capital investment programme in March 2012. Let's look up to 2016. There's 275 new major projects on that list, and I do know at the minute the list is now being looked at 2017, 18, 19, and the 2 billion is going to be on a rolling budget. That's my understanding of it. So it doesn't look like the work is going to run out. And I would think that the BIM element of thing, and from a design perspective, it's going to be a very positive thing if we can take it into the mainstream construction. The education delivery in 2014, we've 470 million to be spent this year on primary and post-primary infrastructure. The 320 million then is going to major projects, such as universities, anything that's outside our two lower stream schools. 70 major projects scheduled for this year, 22 primary schools, 12 major extensions to primary schools, 12 second level schools, and 20 extensions to second level schools. 3 special schools and 1 major special school extension. The major special school, or one of the 3 new special schools, is a project that we're actually looking at the minute. And our BIM story is we have the training, we have the staff, we don't have the plan. We have to work out how we're going to integrate that into government procurement contracts. And that's really where our sticking point is at the minute. The procurement element of it is not quite there regarding BIM. The commitment is not there yet. So what we've decided to do is we're actually going to take BIM from the concept stage up as far as the tender stage. And then we're going to use BIM then to produce the standard tender. And that's going to be a benchmark for us. It's going to be a learning curve for how we're going to integrate BIM into the mainstream projects. And that's actually happening on one of the special schools as we speak. These are our requirements. These are taken from the Department Technical Guidance document. Every project that we have has 5 stages. Essentially they're kind of self-explanatory. The preliminary design stage deals with site issues, the concept, how it's going to work. Stage 2 has 2 parts, the A and B, the develop design, and there's a preliminary cost plan then put on at that stage. Then it's into detailed design where we're preparing tender documents, we're preparing documents for planning permissions, fire certs, back certs, all the statutory obligations that we're required to produce. Once they're produced, it will quite quickly move into tender action. So that's producing drawings up to construction stage. Then we have the construction stage itself. This is where we're going to have the difficulty with BIM. Get to stage 3 is going to be the easy part. I think the stage 3 and 4 are really, where probably the government is going to have to guide us on how they want us to proceed. We certainly will be trying to help in any way we can. And I suppose really it's down to how contracts are procured in this country. If you look at BIM and its origins in the USA, it was, design, get the contractor in at the early design stage. But traditionally we don't do that here. Traditionally we design to a particular standard, and then we give that drawings and bundle of documents to a contractor at a price. He comes back, we check the design, and then we tell him to build it. The government in this process here want to be guaranteed duration, price and quality. That's what they want. That's their three major aims. So the 5 stages that we have here, these are requirements that are built into our design documents, and these have to be achieved. Now, how can BIM contribute to the provision of educational facilities? The building information modelling or virtual design construction is the VDC element, and they're transforming our industry at the minute. And I know personally myself, I've went from a drawing board where everything was done in 2D, from detailing the very smallest tables and chairs, and right up to very complex buildings and curved roofs and whatnot. And to be able to do something in 3D certainly gives the designer, that surety that what they're doing can actually be done. And when you collaborate that with engineers and mechanical and electrical engineers, it's all positive for the building. And it really promotes the information sharing process, rather than I've done this, I'm not giving him the information because he doesn't need it. To use BIM, you have to accept the fact that you need to share your information. We've been using VDC. Well, BIM hasn't been around, I suppose, yet in the government sector. So we've been using VDC for the last, personally, last 10 years, 8 to 10 years. I've been using it, and I found it fantastic, particularly on more complex projects. Not so much on the regular small extensions that you're going to build, because you will kind of have them off by heart. But certainly where you're dealing with curved roofs or multi-phase projects and whatnot, it certainly is. It really, you can visualize and you can actually show the client how it's going to work, because a picture will tell 1,000 words. It'll also, your efficiency, the quality of drawings you have, scheduling, risk analysis, cost control, all very important factors. And the earlier you embed them in the project, the better. you know, it's certainly the way forward. The new forms of government contract, they refer to substantial design. Now, you'll hear a lot of BIM talk about, you know, parametric models and metadata, and, you know, I mean, there's not a whole lot there that we haven't already been using in the industry. Parametric model, what does it mean? It's basically a model that has shapes that represent what you actually want to build. The metadata is information that's contained within that. For example, if you have a parametric model of a door and you have a handle on it, you can say who the manufacturer of the handle is, you can say what the colour is, you can say what the finish on the handle is. You don't actually have to show it in a graphical model what the finish is, but you can describe it. That's the metadata that travels with the parametric model. It's not actually that difficult to understand once you use it. I think the big fear is engaging it in the first place. But once you do, it becomes fairly routine. The benefits of the reduced contractual risk are huge for us. In the government sector, I'm sure a lot of you that here that's involved in schools will appreciate the length of time that's put into contracts when contractors refuse to agree with your determination on a change order and you end up in arbitration or conciliation. It's not really factored into the time and effort that you price the job for, you know, but it is a huge problem. And the majority of the problem comes down to clarity within contract documents, either in the details or in the drawings. And, you know, with clash detection, you know, Tomo had reverted to it earlier on, they found 400 different issues in the project that they were when they got the site. You can imagine how much change orders would be generated from that type of work. One or two of them at 16 and 17,000 euros each. You know, it's quite a lot of money. So, you know, investing earlier on is really the way to go. It certainly will reduce the number of conflicts because you're able to say to the contractor, look, we're given the drawings, this is what we asked you to build. You can't go and build it another way. You know, the working hours for rework, I know myself, we've started to embark on using Revit. The more I'm getting familiar with it, the quicker I'm actually picking it up. It's a fantastic package to use, but at the same time, you know, I mean, it does take a little bit of learning curve at the beginning to get used to it. And certainly it improves productivity because the 3D model produces all your 2D drawings. It's fantastic how it does it. Very simple and straightforward to use. It certainly has a big influence on how the whole design team will integrate with one another. And that's something that we need to really focus on, that it's no longer waiting 6 weeks for the architect to do his concept and the mechanical and electrical engineer is not doing a whole lot, and the structural civil engineer. They need to be talking from day one. And that certainly is going to be a change in the environment that we normally engage under. Collaborative working is going to be the way forward. The facilities management of it end, now, thank God, so far I don't really get involved in that too much, but it does become, or has become a problem for me now because we've been handing over primary schools of 24 classrooms in size up to 5,500 square metres, and they're being run by educational people. They're not involved in construction of any description. And they're coming back to me wondering how are they going to manage this building, and we didn't realise we had to have a maintenance programme for this. We didn't realise we had to have a maintenance programme for that. You know, the BIM model is something that will be really helpful for them to educate them into how to maintain the building. You know, as Tomo has pointed out, you know, that it costs 5 times the price of the building to maintain it over its lifespan. You know, when you think of things like that, it's a lot of money that's going to be spent and wasted. If the building is not maintained properly, you know, I would say you could be up on 7, 8, 9 times the cost. The BIM model also, we see another element of our research project that we're hoping to undertake within the department, that it can be used in second level schools where kids are learning technology. You know, from technical graphics, metalwork, woodwork, all of those trades and everything are all going to be built into BIM eventually. You know, and you know, they will all understand how it works and how to use it. I think as a learning tool, to have a model of your own building and be able to show the kids how things work in it is certainly something that's going to make their integration into BIM far easier than ours will be, because we're at the cold phase now. We have to learn on the fly. They're going to learn straight out of the nest. The monitoring the energy efficiency is another area that is quite important to us. The department are insisting on schools are now designed to a particular energy level, and again, BIM is another way of we can show that these designs are being done to that standard, and they certainly will have an impact on the life cycle of the building. I suppose as a practice within the department where we're at now at the minute, we've just completed our hardware upgrade. Software license upgrades are in process. We have looked at several software packages. We've opted to go with an Autodesk Building Design Suite. The reason being is it has the entire MEP and structural package that comes with it. So we'll be hoping that, when we take on board engineers or structural and mechanical and electrical, that we'll actually be able to integrate them into a single model that we can actually sort of investigate ourselves and test and try. That's what we want to do. We've completed all the staff that are involved in doing drafting in the department have completed their essential training. Everyone of them would have been reasonably familiar with CAD before they went, and they found the first 3 days was great. Everything was going hunky-dory. We were producing all sorts of lovely shaped buildings, and everybody was patting everyone on the back saying how easy things were going to be, until we got to the Revit families and we crashed fairly quickly. It does take a little bit more expert level to understand the families, but it's like anything. Once you do one or two of them, the rules are the same for them all, so you will pick them up quite quickly, although initially you probably think they're difficult to manage. The difficulties that are facing us at the moment is we don't have a BIM mandate and a protocol for educational facilities. That's something that the department themselves are going to have to develop. And unfortunately, because we are a government department, it will have to be government-led. Now, we can persuade other government departments to back us if we can show them that what we've done will work. And, the way we would see, I won't say we're getting around that, but how we would sort of integrate into that process was hopefully we'll actually take a standard school and develop the entire process through BIM from conception to delivery. And we can look at what value that's going to have if we're going to produce an FM model at the end of it, if that's the route we need to go. But really we need to sit down and make a plan of what we need, and then we need to kind of work how we're going to deliver it. Our own internal planning system will have to be looked at as well. As many of you in the industry are well aware that there is a lot of the work in design now is going to be front loaded. So there has to be a change in practice about how people are paid, how they're engaged, what they're expected to deliver, and it will mean changing the existing process out there. And as you well know, people are not always happy about change. But at the end of the day, if it's going to be for the benefit of the projects and the benefit of the industry, I think it has to happen. Right? The department's technical guidance documents, they need to be reviewed. I don't think there's a whole lot in them that needs to be changed. Probably integrated enough to be able to relate them to what performance specifications are required for BIM and how it's going to be delivered. But I would think that if a BIM execution plan is formulated and within that plan there will be the levels of BIM requirements for models and whatnot will all be predefined. So I think that's something that the industry really needs. We need to know where we're going and how we're going to do it. If we make mistakes along the way, I'd like to think that for the next job we do, we'll correct them as it goes. The potential changes to the government construction contracts, that's really where the going to site is going to cause us trouble. Because the government have a mandate for construction contracts, it has a particular management regime Now we've got to be able to make BIM integrate into that rather than trying to integrate it into BIM. And I think that can be achieved, and I think it will work quite well. It's the tenure model that we use at the minute is based on the Capital Works Management Framework. And the Capital Works Management Framework decided in May 2004, and it was introduced to reform how the government was spending money on infrastructure projects. And they basically looked for the three things, as I said earlier, which was the cost certainty, time and quality. And you know, that's what they really wanted. Now I see those three things as a BIM target, and I think if we can introduce a BIM process that will align with those three things, I think we could be onto something that the capital the capital frameworks or the Capital Works Management Framework will buy into. And I think that's definitely where we need to go. And they have a whole suite of guidance material, like, you know, I mean, it's based on the traditional structure of tendering that we have. And, you know, I think with introducing BIM, it's going to change that traditional structure. So we need to make sure that we take on board what their requirements are as well as our own. This here is I gave a presentation about a year ago to some of the VECs that have now become the ETBs, who are going to be running projects for the government. Basically, they're going to be the people that are leading the delivery of these projects, and to try and explain to them, you know, graphically how things work. Once the contract is signed, the employer's representative is the guy that controls everything, and we need to be very careful of that when we introduce it into BIM, that BIM can fit this model here. And everything goes through the employer's representative, the design team through the employer's representative, contractor through the employer's representative, and the client or the employer through the contractor. It's no longer acceptable in a government contract where the employer will instruct the design team to do something. You know, it all formally has to be done through the documentation mechanism. If it's not, when it comes to be challenged, if it is challenged and the protocols aren't followed, either the client, the design team, or the contractor will end up losing out financially. That's why that structure has been put there. We'd like to think that BIM will, and I do believe that BIM can and has a place that fits into that interface. I think from a design point of view, we need to define level of detail plan. UK use a different level than the US, and we're looking at using the UK one. UK are kind of stuck between a level 2 and a level 3. What's the most appropriate level of detail? I think we can learn from the UK, and I think we can pick up those small anomalies that they have encountered and bring them into our own package and produce a level of detail program that's acceptable for use in this country with the Government Works Management Framework. The school facilities management, this is new to schools, as I says, particularly to small schools. It is going to be difficult to try and explain to people that are not technically skilled in using a model as to what it's for. But again, you know, if they have to engage somebody to do something, that the profession and the whole industry will be moving that direction. So if they engage an architect or an engineer to come in and do some works for them or check out a maintenance plan for them, that he'll be able to take the BIM model that has been produced for the school, and he'll be able to deduce from that what he needs to know in order to fix the problems or schedule the maintenance. The AEC industry in this country is slow to change. It's getting there. Virtual design, construction and BIM stalls at the early design stage, which means we don't follow it through all the way because it becomes hard to keep everything updated. I think with the modern tools that we have and the modern technology that's there, I think that bridge has been gapped. So I don't think it's necessarily something we should be afraid of. I think if we just engage it, it will become the norm. What are the next steps? The department, I know personally myself, I'm still, I think I'm about 90% there when I say that I've almost convinced my manager that we are going to take on a BIM project. I have to just work out the details of the times and dates and what he's going to let me away with. Again, it will be a research project, so we can actually talk to other government departments and we can feed the information that we gather from that. Now, for that to happen, I'll be tapping the likes of CITA for information on their Rosestown project. They ran a project in 2013. It was a virtual project that they ran, but having been at some of the talks that were given at the gathering, and I listened to some of the experiences that some of the guys had, I mean, I found it very worthwhile to find out what was relevant and what wasn't relevant. And hopefully I'll be able to tap into those resources. And when we put our first draft of our BIM plan together, that we will have factored in those things and try and eliminate problems that other people have had in Ireland. There's the UK BIM mandate. I mean, they've learned lessons, you know. I mean, they charged ahead with this early on. Everything went great till they got to site. When they got to site and the contractor was asked to produce his as-built model, some of the contractors early on said, it's not in my brief. You know, we have to be careful with those sort of things. They ended up then, the architects and the engineers and the people involved ended up having to pull together the as-built models, and there was a whole, I suppose, illusion out there that it was costing much more to do BIM drawings from an architecture or an engineering perspective than what was actually required. And I think it was more of it was their first time, you know, contracts, not everything had been thought through 100%. And I think that that's a valuable lesson for us to learn, is that, you know, we need to make sure we don't make the same mistakes other people have made, or this is going to be difficult to get the government to row in behind. The Grange Garment campus that Michael was talking about earlier on, I've been on that campus myself, and it is an absolutely phenomenal project to be involved with. The department are building a national school on that campus. We're in negotiations with Michael and his team at the minute to try and come up with the design. And I do think there's a potential there for that project, because it has been integrated in a much larger project which has a huge facilities management issue, that there may be a potential there to develop that as a BIM project. And let's run it, and in conjunction with another project that we'll do, we can review both at the end and we can compare notes and say, look, this worked well for us, you know, let's, going forward, I think we should do that, and vice versa. I think that's the only way we're going to come up with a plan for BIM for ourselves. And again, as I referred to there, was the CITA pilot project that they ran in Rosestown. So to recap, I think some people think BIM is just a new variety of software. It's not, it's a process. It's a plan. You have to have a plan on how everything is going to pan out. And that deals with from the design concept right through delivery, right through the life cycle of the building. I think if you don't have that plan, or you don't think of BIM as a plan, you're at a loss. Everything else is only a tool that fits into the plan. Softwares, you know, Revit, ArchiCAD, all of these things, they're all only tools that you're using to execute your plan. And it definitely, using the BIM or using the 3D tools that BIM utilizes, you will improve your efficiency, you will improve your design, your construction, your management, and you know, your whole business will develop. You know, it has a huge impact on your business process and your technology tool set. It's collaborative working. It can crystallize designs at early stages, so you don't end up having changes later on in projects. Provides cost certainty, determines a construction period, and it complements the government construction contracts. Up to that point, we can work on how we can integrate it through the delivery process, and I don't think that's going to be too difficult to do. It just might mean having to realign some of the wording in the contracts or in the BIM execution plan. It will provide an as-built model for the school when it's finished, so the school will actually have it there. They can utilise it themselves to educate and train staff and kids that attend the school, or to use it to give to a consultancy to say, well, look, this is our BIM model, this is what we were given, we need to upgrade, or we need an extension, or whatever we need, and the information should be there for professionals in the industry. And it'll also provide live data for an inventory of accommodation, facilities management. Now, the department, we ourselves within the building unit, there's over 3,400 national schools in the country. There's approximately over 900 post-primary and probably 30 third level schools. So it's quite a huge volume of building stock that we have. And we see the BIM integration will give us information on all of those schools. And it's our intention to set up our own inventory on those. So when a school applies for an extension for new windows, whether it comes through a board of management or it comes through an architect or an engineer's practice or whatever, we'll be very quickly able to pull up the school. We know when it was last roofed, we know when the windows went in last. So we could quite quickly make a decision to say, yes, this needs it or it doesn't need it. And we will be hoping that that will iron out some of the delays in the execution of works and will help work flow a little bit quicker, because that is a problem at the minute. This was the first school that I took on in VDC, and I did it in AutoCAD architecture. I don't think I would have got the level of detail on the drawings that I actually got. Barra had done it in a virtual design. The building is, all the classrooms in the building were all curved, and the roof was all curved. So I mean, there was quite a lot of working out, but doing it virtually really made a big difference. And the school turned out really well. I was really, really happy with it when we finished. And essentially, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a very good presentation, and as I said, bringing it back down to earth, the challenges that exist. Any pressing questions for Stephen? I think we can take that as a no. Thank you, Stephen. And the next presentation. The next presentation is coming from Penn State University. We've got three speakers: Edward Gannon, Eric Knowlton, and Craig Dubber. They can't be here today, so we're using technology to link to Penn State University. And because there can be glitches in live transmissions, this presentation has been pre-recorded. But we invite the guys in, and Susanna's going to bring them up now to introduce themselves initially, and then they'll join us again at the end of the presentation for question and answers. So I'll hand over to Susanna.
Okay. Just two quick questions really. At the beginning of your presentation, you said the biggest impact of BIM was likely to be in capital expenditure.
Yes.
You mentioned that the cost of operations is 5, 6, 7 times. The biggest impact is likely to be on the operations expenditure rather than the capital expenditure.
Yeah.
The second question was just to do with, you said you were creating models at the tender stage. Are you going to make those models available as part of the tender documents?
That will be that will be the long-term intention, but unfortunately we can't do that till we get to a stage where they can be tendered competitively. Procurement procedures, I suppose, are what's preventing us doing it at the minute. We don't have a large enough pool of contractors to be able to give it out to give the works out to price at the minute. The reason that we don't have them is because they haven't been vetted yet. It's like a pre-qualification that we do for any job. And it has to be fair, open and transparent. And I think onto that bridge is linked. That's a difficulty we might run into. But again, as I said, we've not been given the instruction inside to proceed past that stage with 3D modelling. You know, the framework that's in place at the minute is all based on a 2D plan package, and that's what we're being asked to abide by at the minute. But as part of our research project, we will actually take it past that stage to see how it can work, and we hope to develop a mechanism to be able to do it for all projects in the future if so is needed. That answer your question?